You know that feeling when you accomplish something significant, get praised at work, or receive a compliment, and for a moment, you feel on top of the world. But then, maybe hours or days later, you're back to questioning yourself, feeling like you're not enough, wondering if you really deserve any of it. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. And here's what might surprise you. The very thing you think will fix this problem might actually be making it worse. We've been taught that building confidence is the answer to low self-esteem. We're told to celebrate our wins, remind ourselves of our achievements, and boost our self-image. But what if I told you that this approach is like building a house on quicksand? The more you add to it, the more unstable it becomes. Think about it for a moment. When your sense of worth depends on external validation, accomplishments, or how you compare to others, what happens when those things aren't there? When you have a bad day, make a mistake, or someone criticizes you, that carefully constructed confidence crumbles, leaving you feeling worse than before. This isn't a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's simply the inevitable result of trying to build something solid on an unstable foundation. Your brain, designed to keep you safe, starts treating your self-worth like a stock portfolio that needs constant monitoring and protection. The exhausting truth is that confidence built on achievements is conditional. It says, I'm valuable because I did this, or I matter because people think well of me. But what happens when you can't perform, when you fail, when others disapprove? Here's where it gets interesting. Research shows that people with inflated self-esteem are actually more fragile than those with genuinely stable self-regard. When you force confidence, you create what psychologists call a defensive high self-esteem, a brittle shell that protects a vulnerable core. You might recognize this pattern in yourself. Maybe you rehearse conversations in your head, constantly seeking reassurance, or feel crushed when someone doesn't respond to your message immediately. Perhaps you find yourself comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel, wondering why you can't seem to measure up. This comparison trap is particularly vicious because our brains are wired to notice differences and threats. Social media has turned this ancient survival mechanism into a constant source of self-doubt. You see someone's promotion, vacation photos, or seemingly perfect relationship, and suddenly your own life feels inadequate. But here's what's really happening. You're running an invisible algorithm in your mind that constantly ranks you against others. This mental program never stops running, consuming your energy and peace of mind. It's like having a critical roommate in your head who never takes a break from pointing out what you lack. The irony is that the harder you try to boost your confidence through achievements or comparison, the more dependent you become on external factors you can't control. You're essentially handing over the remote control of your emotional well-being to circumstances, other people, and outcomes that are inherently unpredictable. This is where Brené Brown's research becomes transformative. She discovered something that changes everything. There's a profound difference between self-esteem and self-compassion. Self-esteem asks, how do I stack up against others? Self-compassion asks, how do I treat myself when I'm struggling? Self-esteem is conditional. It rises and falls with your performance, others' opinions, and how you compare to those around you. It's like a weather vane, constantly shifting based on external winds. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is like bedrock. It remains steady regardless of circumstances. When you practice self-compassion, you're not trying to convince yourself that you're better than others, or that your mistakes don't matter. Instead, you're acknowledging that struggle is part of the human experience. You're treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend going through a difficult time. Think about how you respond when a friend makes a mistake. Do you berate them and tell them they're worthless? Of course not. You probably listen, offer perspective, and remind them that everyone stumbles sometimes. Yet when you make a mistake, that inner voice can be ruthlessly harsh. Here's a simple technique that can interrupt this pattern in real time. When you notice that critical inner voice starting its familiar routine, pause and place your hand on your heart. Take a slow breath and say to yourself, this is a moment of struggle. Struggle is part of life. May I be kind to myself right now. This isn't about positive thinking or self-deception. It's about changing your relationship with difficulty. Instead of adding judgment and criticism to an already challenging situation, you're offering yourself the basic human decency you'd extend to anyone else. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it works immediately. You don't need to wait for achievements, approval, or perfect circumstances. You can practice self-compassion right now, in this moment, regardless of what's happening in your life. But let's go deeper with another powerful technique. When that critical voice emerges, the one that tells you you're not smart enough, successful enough, or worthy enough, try this 30-second exercise. First, notice the voice without fighting it. Simply observe, there's that critical voice again. Then ask yourself, would I say this to someone I care about who is in my situation? The answer is almost always no. This simple question creates space between you and the criticism. It reminds you that you have a choice in how you speak to yourself. You can choose to be your own worst enemy, or you can choose to be your own compassionate ally. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal journal nearly 2,000 years ago, understood something profound about human worth. He wrote about the importance of recognizing your intrinsic value, not based on what you accomplish or how others perceive you, but simply because you exist as a conscious, feeling being trying to navigate this complex world. The Stoics taught that your worth isn't determined by external circumstances, because those circumstances are largely beyond your control. Your job performance, other people's opinions, even your own successes and failures. These are all temporary and changeable. What remains constant is your capacity for wisdom, compassion, and growth. This doesn't mean achievements don't matter, or that you shouldn't strive for excellence. It means your fundamental worth as a person isn't on the negotiating table. When you stop trying to earn your worth and start recognizing it was there all along, something shifts. The exhausting cycle of seeking validation, comparing yourself to others, and riding the roller coaster of conditional self-esteem begins to quiet down. You start making decisions based on your values rather than what will make you look good. You take risks because growth matters more than protecting a fragile image. You handle criticism and setbacks with more grace because your sense of self isn't hanging in the balance with every outcome. This isn't about becoming complacent or lowering your standards. It's about operating from a place of stability rather than desperation. When you're not constantly trying to prove your worth, you can focus your energy on what actually matters to you. Here's what I want you to consider. What if the peace you're searching for isn't found in building bigger achievements or gaining more approval? What if it's found in finally putting down the heavy burden of having to earn your place in this world? Your worth isn't a math problem that needs solving. It's not a score that needs improving. It's simply a fact of your existence, as unchangeable as your need for oxygen or your capacity to feel both joy and sorrow. The next time you catch yourself in the self-worth trap, remember this. You don't need to be perfect to be valuable. You don't need to outperform others to matter. You don't need external validation to confirm what was true about you before you achieved anything at all. Maybe the real confidence you're looking for isn't about feeling superior or infallible. Maybe it's about feeling fundamentally okay with who you are right now in this imperfect moment. Maybe it's about trusting that you're enough. Not because you've proven it, but because you've stopped needing to prove it at all. What would change in your life if you truly believed that?